He hasn't been here in a hot skip in a minute, but I promise you tonight on Sportswire Radio, on all of our platforms who have now joined us, he is going to make up for it and some. This man may need no introduction, but he's going to get the introduction that he so glowingly deserves. Last time we heard from him, he was the reigning, defending, Colory Championship Wrestling World Underground Champion, but he's going to talk about what happened then, but what's happening now, and maybe even what happens in the future. And I know that we're going to certainly want to acknowledge all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, as I stated, he may need no further introduction, but he's going to get that introduction because the last time I had him on, my introductions are way better. He finds out now. So with that, wait for further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one. Global Sports Show. The former Colory Championship Wrestling World Underground Heavyweight Champion. They call him my friend. Hey,
I'm good, man. You've been working on that. You've been working on the intro.
I have been working on the intros. There's absolutely no question about that. I told you, I think the last time I had you when I was sick, I think it might have been like maybe in February or March, and I wasn't feeling well. But since then, those intros have become tenfold. It's actually putting pressure on me each time I go on to these. But that's here nor there. Obviously, it has been a while since we last had you here on Sportswire Radio, and the world of Colored Championship Wrestling has changed, and especially for you. I'll get into all of that shortly, and especially somebody else who's a tribal cheese, some may say. But for those that are watching and listening on Sportswire Radio Hybrid, I want to ask you, because obviously we have a huge show coming up here next weekend for our friends at Colory Championship Wrestling, and please support Colory Championship Wrestling. I'll have the plugs up here shortly on a brand new ticker that we have. But you were in the ring also with somebody I know very well and I've had on here a couple of times, and that is Walker Wall Street. This is a really, really intriguing match. I mean, this is a main event in any other promotion. So for those who are listening and watching on Sportsfire Radio, Hybrid, talk about what we can expect between you and Walker Wall Street.
I mean, it's no secret that since day one, when I came into the company, I had my eye on Walker.
Yep.
It's one of them matches that I'd thrive in.
Goes back to the old elite days. Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely. He's a big guy. I've seen what he can do. I've obviously been toe-to-toe with him a couple of times in Rumbles, things like that. What do you expect from it? Just big guys throwing a weight around. It's what I do well, and it's what he does well.
Absolutely, but this is a match, again, a lot of people may even say, well, this is a match that could certainly be leading into other things, bigger things for the both of you guys. It's a dream match, really, in CCW. If you're a fan of CCW, if you're a Hybrid fan, a Walker Wall Street fan, this is a match a lot of people want to see, and Walker Wall Street has had also an interesting past several months. I mean, so do you feel like here that for you, there's a lot to prove here and being able to kind of show what you said months ago about when Walker was obviously in another life, in another time? I mean, talk to me about some of that.
I've got absolutely nothing to prove. You hit the nail on the head. When people mention me, you've got to think how many times my name is mentioned in dream matches.
A lot.
And it's a lot.
Yours truly has mentioned you a lot on Sportswire, so yes, I agree.
I've got nothing to prove. Any match I'm in is a dream match. I mean, if we're talking about if there's any respect there, there's a respect for what he does. There's a respect for how he carries himself. Not respect there as a person. But, I mean, It's going to be a big match. I do think it'll draw people.
CCW shows always draw people. I got that. But you say something interesting there, sir, in that you don't respect Walker Wall Street as a person. Can you explain for the audience why?
Don't need a reason. Just don't like him.
You don't like him.
There's a reason I want him in a match, and that's I don't like him.
So you feel like, do you want to then, again, you make a point, that's fair, that you have nothing to prove, but is the point here is that maybe instead, conversely, you want to set an example for Walker Wall Street as making him somebody that he gets in your way and you're going to basically handle him?
That is a good point that you bring forward. There's no one bigger proportion-wise than Wall Street and CCW. He's got the height, he's got the strength, things like that. Laying him out, not like I need to make that impact, but it would make an impact, and it would definitely put people back on notice.
No question about it. It would certainly put people on notice. And the last time we saw you in the ring, I'm going to come back to Walker in a second before I get to some comments, was you actually teaming up with Nerds there, Mr. Alfie Nerds. I mean, that was an interesting.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
There's someone I respect. There's someone.
That's why I wanted to talk about that. I mean, if you would have asked me the first time or the second time I had you on Sportswire, you would have teamed with him. I would have said, really? But here we are, and let's talk about that because that's the last time we saw you in the ring in CCW. And why do you like him and respect him, conversely, unlike, let's say, Mr. Wall Street?
I feel like the deck was just stacked against Nerds from the start. As much as I like Mr. Barris, the fact that he's aligned with him, you've got to admit that puts a target on your back.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I have a James Barris announcement later on. Absolutely. I totally understand that. Sure.
And obviously, I hope Mr. Barris knows this is not a dig because I am a huge fan of his as well. The fact that Nerds has had the deck stacked against him for simply having a friend like Barris. And he's put in the training. He's put in the grind. I mean, you've seen, we're tagged together and we won against Dagon and Dustin.
Who would have guessed that, right? Who would have certainly guessed that?
I mean, we made it look easy.
You made short work of them, no question about that. So is it fair for me to ask that maybe Mr. Nerds is misunderstood? You think that's what it is?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you're sitting tall of a guy, he's lovely. Full of advice, has your back. He's a great guy.
So he's somebody that you speak with quite often, and he's somebody that you feel like you're on the same page as these days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got his back if he ever needs it. I know he's got mine.
Oh, I'm sure, but I don't think you need really much of anybody having your back because you're hybrid. I mean, you're really, again, one of the toughest people, not just in CCW, but you're one of the toughest people in this sport. And frankly, of all the people that I've interviewed in my career, which is 5 years now, just about 5 years, we're getting ready for the 5-year celebration soon on Sportswire. Details for announcements later on, but you are legitimately one of the toughest people that I've ever spoke with. So I don't really think you need much help, sir.
I was just trying to be nice.
I see.
You've got to, you've got to carry yourself a certain way.
But you always did, though. Listen, and I want to say something here because I want to talk briefly about the championship before I come back into current events. I always did feel that there was a lot of pressure on you when the time you were the champion here. Earlier in this year, obviously for much of winter and maybe very briefly into the spring, when you were the world champion in here, and you had a lot of responsibilities. You had a lot of pressure as champion, and you carried yourself a certain way. Maybe the fans, I guess, later on didn't appreciate that, but you did work very hard and carried yourself in a certain way, sir. Is that a fair statement for me to say?
Absolutely. I'm a professional. That's the top and bottom of it. It's a job. I mean, if we want to go talking about on personal levels about this title reign and what drove us to kind of turn me back on everything after that, I'll ask you the same questions I asked Taylor Truth, and that is, if you can remember anything like that. I'll answer it if you don't know. But as champion, my 3 title defenses, how many times did I main event?
0.
So, okay then, as champion, the face of the company, how many times did I close the show?
0.
Okay. Since I've been at that company, CCW, phenomenal company, run by a very clever, intelligent man.
Right.
How many posters have I been on?
That you headlined 0.
1 poster.
But you headlined 0 posters, if I'm not
Oh
mistaken.
no, I was front and center of the poster. So when you talk about people not appreciating me as champion,
And how?
you
But
hit the nail on the head.
here's a follow up to that. Out of how many posters we're talking about since you're running CCW, that would basically be a percentage. The percentage of that, sir, let's obviously break that down. Although I'm not very good at math, was less than 20%. We're talking about 10% of the posters that you were in this company that you were on. I mean, that certainly says, if I were you, I would certainly maybe be upset too. Why do you think that was, though? I mean, you were the champion. We had you on here. You were specifically brought on to Sportswire because you were the world champion at the time. You were one of the top draws in this sport, and you weren't in the main event. I mean, you didn't close the show. You were on 1 poster. I mean, so why do you think that was? I mean, what's your thoughts? You ever think about that?
Yeah, because the fans like middle-aged men who paint the face and have silly haircuts. That's the top and bottom of it. The fans didn't appreciate what I was doing, the legitimacy I was bringing to the company.
Okay. All right. I mean, so you say the fans didn't get it. So they made a change to go back to was the tired and true kind of old man situation, but weren't you aligned though with that individual or 2 or maybe 1? I mean, one of the people you were, and you wrestled him, and he's been on the show here in the past. You wrestled him last month. So, I mean,
And I won.
I know. No, I got that. I got that you won, but you were aligned with him at one time. So were you expecting the fans to embrace you because you were aligned with him, or walk me through that?
So I'd done what I needed to do to get me foot in the door.
I agree with that.
And then obviously I was seeing I was seeing no benefit with being with them.
You felt basically you had plateaued and that basically there was nowhere else to go at that point.
I was held down, basically.
You could say that as well. I mean, that's a fair stake. I mean, you could certainly say that.
I think that's the only way to say it.
Okay, yeah, no, I got you. I got a ton of comments here. Let me say hello to some people here. First of all, I want to say hello to somebody in Australia. It should be 5:15 a.m. Australian time there. So this man, this young child or young man, boy, whatever you want to call it, Ace Reed, host of the Wired Up podcast, have to give him a ton of credit because he's here with us. He'd like to say hello. He also wants to say hello to the champion. Speaking of big guys, who are going to be in the house Sunday evening, my time here in New York. Soldier GP, he's from the IMF Foundation. And obviously the guys are getting ready for a big show coming up. They also have their own live show that'll take place in December. He'll say hello about that Sunday night, but he says, how's it going, guys? We're doing great. Thank you for tuning in. He's out there in the state of Iowa, so I really appreciate Soldier's support on that. I want to say hello to my friend in the state of Indiana, Mr. Michael Blackheart, big fan of us. His father-in-law is a referee. He referees for a company called XCW Shelbyville. Always messages me, tells me how much he loves Sportswire. I really appreciate that. He also wants to kind of break the ice for a second and says, you have some sick art on your arms. Now, I know we've spoke about the tattoos in the past, but you have any new tattoos since we last spoke? I feel like you might have.
I'm having to check. I don't even know how many. I
think the last time I had you on was like, I think about 6 months ago, 6 or 7 months ago. So I don't remember if you have new tattoos since. So I thought maybe to kind of break the ice for a second, I'd ask you. How many
No, so,
tattoos do you have, by the way? Is it like 10? Is it 12? I mean,
no, no less. I've got this one, which obviously spans on
I
me.
remember that. I've seen that obviously when you wrestled.
This one.
Okay.
I've got 2 there, so 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I'll tell you.
I've got
I'll
5
tell you who
all
you
over
have
the
more
back.
tattoos than. You have more tattoos than this individual. I'm going to get to in a little while, certainly, but he wants to break character for a second and says that he's a big fan of Hybrid as a wrestler and a person, and he says he's watching this very closely. We'll get to the in-character stuff in a little while for sure. And Michael also wants to say, looks like he eats nails for breakfast without any milk. Now, can you confirm if you eat nails for breakfast, or you want to plead the fifth on that, as they say here in America?
Nope. Nails for breakfast, lunch and
Okay.
dinner.
Fair
Some
enough.
flax seeds now and again as well.
Mr. Cheese wants to accommodate me on my shirt. I appreciate that. He also says from Michael, Hybrid, you're very soft spoken, but I can tell by your words you were great in the business. Well, he was the world champion in arguably one of the most successful promotions in the United Kingdom, which, oh, by the way, you can follow on Facebook. Cutlery Championship Wrestling, Carnage Championship Wrestling. I couldn't fit Coming Out Championship Wrestling, but fit for them as well. And Instagram at Cutlery Championship _wrestling. So make sure you go out and support CCW. Really one of, I would say in my career, really one of the companies I've spoke with the most. And I continue to support CCW, and I hope that you join me in doing so here. But speaking of individuals who I'll also have an announcement for in a little while, he also says here something, you kind of mentioned him. His name is James Barris. Probably heard of James Barris, right? You referenced him a little while ago. He says, 2 young guys, Wall Street versus Hybrid, 2 hungry guys. This match will be very interesting to watch. All I'm hoping to see is the Elite crumbling. Well, I feel like that was a topic months ago, and yet here we are still kind of talking about the vestiges, the last of the Mohicans of the Elite. But do you feel like here that the Elite could finally crumble and finally fall here after, in your words, maybe easily dispatch of Walker Wall Street coming up next weekend at No Excuses?
Just you just have to look at CWO, and that was a faction.
Oh, what happened? Don't know anything about them. Weren't they a knockoff?
Exactly. I was in there, and look what I've done to that, and that was my faction.
There was yours, and you put them on the map. There's no question. You were the guy that brought something. You guys collectively, listen, the age was brought down by what, 50 years, basically, by you bringing in there? Is that a fair statement to say?
Absolutely. The talent rose 10 times as well.
Well, certainly for one of those talents, you could definitely say that was the case. I mean, certainly one of the talents. I'll leave that out there. But, I mean, obviously, it's a hungry match for both of you guys. Are you concerned in any way, though? Let's go back to Mr. Wall Street, that maybe Mr. Wall Street is hearing this and use this as motivation potentially for him to kind of basically eat some of your words. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes, it is a possibility. We'll just be honest. Yes, it will be a possibility. But I want him at his most dangerous. I don't want someone wandering around the ring looking clueless after I've punched him in the face a couple of times. I want someone who's driven, struggling to get back up, puts in the fight. I want the best version of Wall Street.
Is it fair? Is it fair?
The best version.
I get that. Is it fair for me to say, though, that your punch, when it lands on Mr. Wall Street's face, will be the hardest punch he's ever felt in his career?
Absolutely.
Pretty much that's what I thought. I want to say hello here to the one and only Taylor Truth. Taylor is here, and he also has an interesting comment, which I'd like to pull up here, and I want to say thank you, Taylor. Of course, Taylor. We had Taylor Truth in the house earlier this year as well, so it's almost kind of, I think, the same week you guys came on at one point. He says, though, disappointing to see Hybrid try to claim he brought down the CWO. We haven't went anywhere, and we are simply recouping. Your response to that?
I don't see us anywhere. I don't see you anywhere. When I see Dustin, I'm disappointed.
Well, I know that, obviously, because you wrestled and beat him last month.
Blizzard couldn't even show up to our match.
I kind of knew that also. Yeah, you were supposed to wrestle Blizzard, and I wasn't even going to bring that up because it never happened.
I mean, me and Blizzard aren't done. Me and Blizzard won't be done.
So that's something that you think will happen again one day? Maybe
That's
the
something. No, I'm not one of them who'll go out and try and book my own matches. I work for Mr. Barris. He books the matches. But if it was an option, it would be something I wanted.
So you think then maybe that's up to Mr. Barris then? You're not somebody that goes about it and says, I want this, I want that. You basically do as what Mr. Barris says. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I'm employed. It's a job.
And it's a good paying job? Good paying?
It's a job.
The job. But you like the job. This job you like because you get to beat people up, right? Obviously, at least that point you could say, well, that's a good job. You beat people up, and obviously that's something.
You said is it a well paying job? I'm looked after. And
Okay.
I'm good at what I do.
Can I ask you conversely before I get to some more comments? Conversely these days, do you look at yourself when it comes to this job? And don't tell me what you're paid or whatever else in the ring, whatever you do, but do you consider yourself a hitman potentially?
No. But
No.
if you ever needed a favor.
That's saying a lot though, that would be the case. Okay, fair enough. I want to get to some more comments here from Mr. Taylor Truths. I've taken a hybrid slap, was not impressed. You want to disagree, agree? What do you want to say to that?
Do these hands look like they're made for slapping?
No, they look like they're made for. If you hit me, I don't think I'm ever getting up. I'd probably be dazed and confused, quote unquote, as Bobby Plant Led Zeppelin sang.
I like Taylor. I like Taylor. There's a reason I slapped him.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna certainly leave that there. But he says though that you're a Barris crawler. It seems. I mean, so what is that? What does he mean? What does he imply by this? That calling you a Barris crawler?
Not a clue. I'm not aligned with Barris.
But you respect him, though. But you respect him.
There's a few people I respect in CCW. If Mr. Barris is one of them, and like I said, I'm looked after.
I can see that. No, there's no question I could see that. And I do want people to follow Hybrid. You can check him out here. He's on Instagram at hybridpw_official. Also hybridpw. I think if it comes up, it'll also be there. Also, you can check us out here on Sportswire Radio. I'll come back to all that here. But I have here also from Mr. Truths, Hybrid was a champion. He's fallen out of that frame. I mean, we kind of glancingly talked about when you were the champion, but maybe in a way, can you say that by you no longer being champion, you've gotten in a way maybe to be who you want to be? And as champion, the pressure and the pitfalls and the lack of respect held you down. Do you feel maybe conversely that you are the Hybrid that you've wanted to be and we've gotten to see now the last few months in CCW? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't play a character. Obviously, it was mentioned earlier on the way I speak.
You don't put on face paint. You don't obviously put on a costume. You don't wear a wig. I got that. No, you're a true ass kicker. You're basically an old school, straight up. I'm getting in the ring and I'm taking you down and I'm beating you till you either submit or it goes 1, 2, 3. I got that.
Yeah, so I don't need to. I'm just me. And now I get to be just me because it's Hybrid, not Hybrid, part of the CWO.
But I would argue again, listen, the CWO, I mean, what is the CWO right now? I mean, could obviously make irrelevant. That. Well, certainly somebody in that group is very irrelevant. I'll leave that there. Soldier wants to say Hitman because in his company, well, in his group, the Foundation, he and a guy, Omen Black, they're basically hired hitmen, but we're here in England. So, yeah, I mean, I guess. But, everything's different. But obviously, follow Soldier, most importantly, to see why he's a hitman also on YouTube.
I'll check him out.
You should. He's a big guy. He's got tattoos also. He's at IMF Wrestling _666. He's got about 1,500 subscribers. He's also at IMF _wrestling on Instagram. And the Tribal Cheese says the cheese chop is definitely one to be acknowledged. Only 6 given out in my career. Okay, well, you know what? I do want to go to that then. Okay, so
Well, we'll jump into obviously the stuff with Big Cheese when you're ready. I kind
I
of want to
actually am
save
not
on.
ready yet. I'm not
I was
ready
gonna say I
yet.
want to save. Like if you think Big Cheese, if you think I'm just like ignoring your comments, stuff like that, it's all gonna get addressed.
Okay, so I'm not going to get there yet. But what I do want to get to here is I want to get to my announcement right away, right off the top. I'm going to go right to the jugular because in your chair, live next Friday, right before No Excuses. We have no excuses for this here on Sportswire Radio. We have to bring him on. The man that is obviously employing you and many other people in Cutlery Championship Wrestling. James Barris is back live on Sportswire Radio on all platforms. He is going to be here on YouTube. He's going to be here on Twitter, on sportnarium.com/player. The boss is back. He's got a lot to get off his chest. He is going to be here the same time, same channel where you are. And it's going to be a real treat to have James Barris here himself. He is back by popular demand. And Mr. Barris, obviously, arguably, one of the top promoters, one of the top owners in this sport. He's got a lot to say when it comes to CCW. The time is now to bring him back. And I'm sure, Hybrid, you're going to definitely be tuned into that one.
Absolutely. You know, I'm always there to support Mr. Barris.
Okay, well, I think a lot of people will certainly, and I'm looking forward to all that because, again, you can catch that here also on Sportswire Radio. It's 6579 streams. My name is the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. Your voice, that's right, of all wrestling. The Reverend Tom Bryce here. We are here with Hybrid. Hybrid, arguably one of the most successful, one of the most dominant champions in CCW history. And, man, I would point out that I had felt that it put CCW on the map of where it should be and where it will be and continue to be. So listen, when we think about some of the prior champions in CCW, compare them to Hybrid. There's no question, despite the fact that he didn't close the show or is in a lack of main events, he certainly did a lot to uphold this company and further it to heights that we've seen with all the Facebook group followers, all the people that like CCW shows, all the sellouts. You know, again, Hybrid was a part of that you can certainly contend with. And we are certainly here. We'll have more coverage coming up also this week. And as I pointed out, Sunday, we'll be here with the IMF's Foundation. I'm also going to be back here later next week with a huge announcement. Also, some big announcements coming up the following week. But I'm going to let people tune in. Maybe with Mr. Barris's spot, we'll announce those. But in the meantime, we are here with James Barris next week. We're here with Hybrid right now. And speaking of people that are tuned in from California, Mr. Skulls himself says, "Good afternoon, gentlemen." I'm glad I caught myself. I was about to say Barris was here now, but thankfully I was able, because I'm quick on my feet, to say next week, Hybrid is here now. And also, Taylor Trude says he thinks he's busy. No, I think he'll be watching that one. I think a lot of people will be watching James Barris's return to Sportswire Radio. I can promise you that. Barris live, unreal. Listen, when James Barris speaks, you listen. James Barris, you just never know what he's going to say. But, you know, let's go back to this match here with Walker Wall Street for a second, because I want to talk about it, because I feel like Walker Wall Street is somebody that, are you taking him lightly?
No.
No.
All right. It's like I said, I know what he can do. I've been in the ring with him.
Mm-hmm.
I know how tough he is. I mean, if you just look at every Rumble, I know I keep referring back to Rumbles because obviously that's the only time I've really interacted with him. He always stands out, and it's not just because of his height. It's like
what his abilities are. Let's I've had him more. I've watched him in the ring. Listen, you don't have to convince me. I mean, Walker is a very worthy competitor. I was just wondering if you're taking him lightly, because it is a different tone, a different perspective, but it's who you are, but it's a different tone from when I had you on in the past. That's all I'm wondering.
No, I completely understand, but like I said, I don't like him.
Okay.
Don't now. Born in the future.
I get it. And obviously that goes back. There's a history there. There's a beef. It goes back and precedes when you were the champion. I certainly understand that here. And also, Taylor wants to point out that I once eliminated him from a Rumble, once and you. And he wants to put the emoji there. Yes, I think Did I have Taylor on? I think after that. I think maybe I did. I think maybe right after that. I think I'm not mistaken.
Right. Well, congratulations, Taylor. I mean, you've peaked. Well done.
Okay, let me ask you though a question because I want to come back to when you were the world champion before I get into really what I think a lot of people might want to hear, and certainly the tribal cheese himself is that's where I'm going to get to last. But do you have any regrets as Cutlery Championship Wrestling Underground Champion? Do you have any regrets toward that at all? That run and kind of how things went down and such? Any regrets at all in how you were champion?
Absolutely. I mean, when I won that title, obviously I had my manager at the time,
Yep.
Mr. Hans Noble, who unfortunately we have parted ways due to disagreements. I had my son, and the first person who came in to congratulate us was Blizzard, as it goes.
Yep.
But I want to take you back to that night.
Yep.
I won the title that night in the main event. That was supposed to be my night. Didn't close the show. Had to be Dustin on the mic, stealing the spotlight, as per. So that would have been my regret, not taking the title and hitting him across the head with it there and then.
Do you feel that Dustin held you down?
Yeah. I'm not even going to go into why. It's obvious. Dustin held us down. Blizzard held us down. Taylor, it's a shame we couldn't make things work out separately. But
do you feel that Dustin saw that you were this young, hungry, original, larger than life character with a shoot fighting background that we had never seen in CCW before? You were essentially, you modernized this company. This was a company that was out of the coals, and it was, like I said, wrestlers with costumes and wrestlers that couldn't talk and couldn't say things, and that he latched on to your popularity basically to keep himself relevant in the spotlight. Is that what you're trying to tell us here, or was what you think maybe?
absolutely. I mean, I could have saved you a few words there. I'm better. I'm more legitimate. I'm more talented. He's done.
So is it maybe fair for me to say that he should have retired and those but that time you came in and you became the champion, it kind of gave him and maybe and I probably should phrase this better, but an excuse for him to kind of hang on and again, maybe continue to be where he shouldn't be and maybe where he should have been put out to pasture. Is that a fair statement?
I mean, with me coming in, when I debuted, I came to the aid of Dustin.
I remember that. Yep, I remember that.
I knew Dustin previously. I got on with him. I was his friend. Seeing what being in the CWO had done for us, how much it held us down, seeing how much Dustin held us down, he should have just shook me hand one day and said, listen, I'm done. I retire. And I would have happily carried the torch going forward.
Now, if I was a fan of the CWO, and I'll get to Taylor, I'll get to comments, but let me play devil's advocate for a second because this came up quite a bit when you were on in the past on Sportswire Radio. Is it fair or was it fair to say that even though you say, yes, you did a lot, you carried these guys, no question about it, I could certainly get from where you're coming from, but there were people that never trusted you when you were in CWO with those guys? I mean, what would you say to that? There was certainly a level that people felt, here's this guy hybrid, comes into CCW, comes in a short amount of time, and he's right on the top. He's basically just skyrocketed. I mean, obviously, you certainly had a look. I certainly think, and again, I said this then, I'll continue to say it now. I mean, I have no problem saying it. I call it right down the line. I did think you were the right champion at the right time for the company. I think for the reasons of your look, what you do in the ring, you're a larger than life character. You're somebody that brings something very unique that CCW hadn't seen at that moment. So I do think, and I still believe that it was the right call to make you a champion. But there were a lot of people that would come on here and said that, can we trust Hybrid with the CWO? Hybrid's in the business for himself. I mean, what would you say to those people?
That you're right.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I'm a singles competitor. There's only if you're a single competitor, then there's only one person you look out for, and that's you. And
So did Dustin make the mistake that maybe he saw you differently than maybe he should have? Is that Dustin's fault?
No, I mean, if Dustin treated us with some respect, nothing would have changed. I would have kept. I wouldn't have mind kept working with CWO, but I wasn't seeing any benefit. I was trying to overshadow us, and as you said, there's no way I was going to be overshadowed. There's a reason I was shot to the very top when I came, and that's because I am one of the best. I'm
Oh,
not
no
going to say
question. Oh, listen, I'll say it again. You were certainly the right time, the right moment. You were the guy. I mean, obviously, I would have thought that you would have been the champion for much longer. I would have thought that you would have held the title as we're here now. I thought you'd still be the champion, but that's obviously for a different discussion, a different time. And I think a
I
lot of
mean,
people.
we won't go into it, but look how I lost that title. It was in a 6-man match,
Yeah.
and two of those guys, it took two of them to eliminate us from that match working together.
And I think there's a lot of people that would probably want a do-over from that. I think there's a
And,
lot of people
well, I
that.
never got that do-over. I never got that rematch. Anyone else would have got it the next show. I didn't.
And that goes back to the lack of disrespect that you had because, again, you never main evented as champion. You never closed the show. And throughout your career in CCW, you've been on one poster,
Well,
one out of probably 10.
we'll look at I main evented that 6-man match. Emphasis on 6-man. I had to share that spotlight with 5 other people that I shouldn't have had to share it with.
And that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes. If you're the guy, right? You're the guy that helped CCW continue the sellouts, right? You were the top draw, right? You were the champion, right? Because they say a world champion. A world champion's the person that's responsible for the company. So everybody looks to the champion to continue for the health and wellness of the championship and the company and all those different things. You were the guy that continued to grow CCW, and basically you were kind of stepped upon. I mean, again, I would think that you would have been the main event at every show in CCW. I would have thought every poster, every interview, every autograph signing, every meet and greet in the community, all the different things that this company has to offer. And again, when you were champion on your watch, I would venture to say that when you were champion in the 4+ months as champion, that there were probably hundreds of likes in the CCW groups. And if I'm not mistaken, on your time as champion, Carnage Championship Wrestling was created. Coming Out Championship Wrestling was created. All those different groups when you were champion. In a lot of ways, you were basically similar to when WWF became WWE and all those things when SmackDown and Raw and all that stuff were created. Maybe I could make the point that Hybrid was responsible for all these CCW offshoot shows and business blasting off into where it is right now. Is that a fair statement?
I think when you put in perspective, just think what we do is for the fans. It's not just the kids that were wanting us to sign posters, things like that. You've got the moms wanting us to sign posters. You've got the moms wanting me to.
And you said you're the most attractive person in CCW, so basically you knew that the women were certainly attracted towards you. I mean, you're basically trying to imply that. I get that. I mean, maybe these are.
I'm just speaking facts. I'm just speaking
facts. Okay, well, you know what? All right, go ahead.
I can tell you that since joining CCW, the female fan base for that company has greatly expanded. And you're welcome, Mr. Barris.
So again, goes back to my point. What was best for business? Hybrid was the guy that basically blasted CCWF. And I would even argue, I'm going to get to the tribal cheese in a second. I would argue to say that Hybrid is responsible for the tribal cheese coming into CCW. Because if you think about business, you think about everything that you did. Again, offshoots of CCW were created, if I'm not mistaken, when you were the champion. Carnage Championship Wrestling, Coming Out Championship Wrestling. You think about all the sellouts continue, all the new likes, all the new followers. That was created because of Hybrid, and they're in tenfold responsible for the tribal cheese coming into CCW really was through Hybrid. Is that a fair statement again for me to make?
Absolutely. I think it's a statement you should make louder, shouting more. I think everyone needs to know what I've done is just, it's slept on.
Is it well? Can I say conversely? Now I'm going to get to comments. I have a ton of comments here, but as I see now, I'm starting to get interesting here a little bit. Now people are starting to wake up a little bit. If I were to say to you, tell me your thoughts on this. Again, this is just my opinion. Maybe it's not facts. Maybe it is. Who knows, right? But maybe you were the greatest CCW champion of all time. Is that maybe a point that I could maybe ask as a question? I mean, who was the greatest Cutlery Championship Wrestling underground champion of all time? Do you feel, because of some of the things I said on a business level, because business is what obviously everybody looks at, you're the most successful champion in the company's history?
Absolutely. I'm the only relevant one.
So everybody else, I mean, a couple of those names, listen, one of them, nobody really has heard of since. Another one, again, don't know what happened to him. Some of the other champions are probably old enough to be your father or grandfather. You kind of referenced one of them. So, I mean, maybe there is a point to what you have to say.
I know, and people don't get it. They can't get it. I'm still here after that, after everything. When people walked and ran, I stuck around because there's still more I can do.
Were you used as champion?
No.
No. Why not?
No. Because Dustin Hart was just Dustin Hart.
Okay. Okay. Let me get to a ton of comments here. So let me get to them. I have a bunch of them here. Taylor Truth says, you're a baby. He also says, Dustin did not hold anyone back. He never would, and he did everything to support you. You used the CWO for that lift. Now, that's what some people had said when I interviewed you the first two times. That's not my opinion. That's what people feel in Cutlery Championship Wrestling. You can go to their groups and find out more. This hybrid angers me with his arrogance. But isn't it kind of what
It's
you
not
always
arrogance. It's not arrogance. It's just raw talent. Maybe if you had some, you could have a little bit more arrogance.
Is confidence the better word?
Destiny.
All right, well, destiny trumps confidence, so I can't argue there with that. I'm not going to argue with you because of the size, shape, and stature of you are. Hybrid is most definitely not responsible for all that, but I could still make that case because, again, the facts are Carnage Championship Wrestling, Coming Out Championship Wrestling, sellouts continued, all the charity shows. You think about new people that have been added. Johnny Storm was announced at one point to come to CCW. The legendary Johnny Storm, who was in Impact Wrestling. That's because Hybrid continued the health and well-being of CCW as underground champion of the world. There was no other prior champion that did those things. No other prior champion in CCW led to the Tribal Chiefs coming in here. You could certainly make that case. I mean, who else could have done those things?
I want to stress as well, because all the points you make are valid. I've been here a year, just less than a year.
Not even. It's about 10 months, I think. 10 or 11
exactly.
months.
Look what I can do. Give us another 3 or 5. Look what I'll be able to do.
There may not be anybody left in CCW from what you're saying. Our friends at Wrestling Championship Entertainment, which I think you kind of answered the question, want to say, was it management that disrespected you?
No. That's just me being honest. No. I feel like it was only till recently, obviously, when I joined, I never really liked Mr. Barris or anything like that.
Yep, we had that here on the show, and he certainly didn't have much love for you either.
Again, is like with nerds, once you get to know them on a personal level, they're great guys. So no, I don't think it was management because I wasn't too involved with it. I think it was more other people who just wouldn't step aside, wanted to take the limelight. I think that's not a dig at anyone in particular. I think it's just a fair comment.
Okay. Certainly, it is what it is. And this individual like to say the Pitbull himself. Yeah, you are definitely the Pitbull. There's no question about that. And I think I know who this individual is, but I'll leave that there. Was the greatest. Okay, I've kind of got all this, but I think the time has come now for something that I want to talk about. And I think a lot of people might want to hear about. Now, I've heard a lot. Now, I've seen a lot. I've had you on a few times, and I've seen you in the ring. I've seen you in different places. I've seen you in CCW. I had you on here when you were the underground champion. So I know a lot about you. But I feel like right now there's a guy. Now, you said you haven't stepped in the ring and you said Walker was the biggest guy, but there's a guy right now who is, I think, the biggest guy on this roster aside from yourself in the tribal chief, Bree himself. This is a man that I do think, I know you say you don't believe in dream matches so much, but I truly believe right now, when I look at attraction matches, when I look at in this sport, not just in CCW, for every pound I would have possible, I would love to see you and the tribal cheese go one-on-one. Because if you think about his track record, your track record, you think about what you guys have done, what he's done since he's come back the past several months, what you've done alone in CCW as the champion of the world. He said a few things about you last time he was on the show. Hybrid, you are the pit bull. I'm giving you the opportunity now to say anything you want to the tribal chiefs because I know he's watching, and I'm sure James Barris is watching eagerly as well.
So I agree with a lot of what you've just said, and like I said, I'm not a character. I'm me. So speaking from me, I like Big Cheese. I do. I think he's funny. I think he's really talented. I also respect him. But when it comes to the most dangerous person in CCW, it's me. It's my yard. I'm not going to say there's not room for you, because frankly there is. I think the roster is stronger with you on it. But when it comes to going head to head, fist for fist, knee to knee, kick for kick, choke for choke, no one does it better than me. It's down to Mr. Barris. He's the boss. He's the CEO. If you're asking what I want, it's a big slice of big cheese.
Wow. Now, can I conversely say though that now you said that there is room for you and him in CCW, but
there's room because I'm gonna let there be room.
Well, that was going to be my point though, but the aftermath of a match like this, the aftermath between you and the tribal cheese, I would think though that in CCW there wouldn't be room for the both of you because of the aftermath, the damage, the destruction. You were the only two people on the roster, if I'm not mistaken, who were shoe fighters. You guys are real fighters. I mean, strip aside everything about him. It ain't easy being cheesy and Brie and the tribal cheese. Acknowledge. Forget all that. Forget about everything that you do. You guys, at the heart of it, are fighters. You guys are fighters. He goes out there and climbs mountains. You go out there and kill people legitimately in a ring, in an octagon. I mean, I would think the aftermath of a match like this between you and him, you guys would never be the same in CCW, and there wouldn't be room for the two of you, I would think.
If he shows me the respect I've showed him, I'll let him live at CCW as long as he pays rent.
Now, you guys briefly kind of were introduced to each other earlier this summer. I mean, what is your recollection of that? And how much have you thought about that since? Because, you know, I had on Mr. Cheese earlier last month, and he had spoke about somebody else that he had been in a rumble with, and they kind of had been for years wanting to have a match, and unfortunately things went the way they went and they didn't happen. But with you and him, I would think though, in this particular case, this is something that's been on your mind and you've kind of stored it for your collection in your brain, and you'd like to maybe do more of it. I mean, what is your recollection and memories, and how much is maybe have you thought about it?
I mean, I'm not going to sit here in denial. I'm not going to sit here and try and be smug about it. In the Brad's Brawl, I did come toe to toe with him, fist for fist, and yeah, it'd been eating away at us for a while. I'm hungry for it. I want it. Again, I can't make the matches. There's only one man who can make the matches, but I want this. I want Big Cheese.
Is he the only man that legitimately can go toe-to-toe with you?
I'm just processing it. I'm thinking about who we got in CCW. No. There's one other who, in Rumbles and things like that, have been a thorn in my side. And I have went hit for hit with, and that was Ronnie.
Well, Ronnie certainly speaks
I'm gonna
for
sing his praises a bit.
No,
Ronnie can go toe-to-toe.
Ronnie speaks for Ronnie, and Ronnie obviously is somebody that definitely deserves that attention. But I'm going to come back to Mr. Cheese himself because he's got a couple of things he wants to say to you. It'll be a certified banger for sure. And speaking of that main poster spot, this is the chance. Well, here's my follow-up. You ready? This is my follow-up for the both of you guys. All I need on a poster, if this is going to happen, with all due respect to everybody in Cutlery Championship Wrestling, Carnage Championship Wrestling, Coming Out Championship Wrestling, all you need on a poster, because the poster's only going to fit you and the Tribal Cheese. So that poster, just want to make it clear, the only two people that could fit on that poster, legitimately speaking, is going to be you and Tribal Cheese. And in fact, I could actually picture that poster. I see you on one end, maybe the left side. I see him on the right side. And I see you guys looking at each other, glanced. And I see fire in the background. I see that CCW logo, maybe on the left or the right side. And whatever that event may be, that's the poster. That's it. That's all you need. That's the poster. That's it. You on one side, him on the other side, fire in the background, CCW logo, the event, the time, how much it costs to get in, the location of the address. That's it. That's all the poster. That's it.
Couldn't agree more. Like I said, Big Cheese, I want this. I want to go toe-to-toe.
He also says you want to try and take the legendary undefeated streak. If Mr. Barris puts the match together, you will be a welcome challenger. Now, it's been long known that the Tribal Cheese, his streak, speaks for itself. There's nobody in this sport that has been able to topple him. There is nobody in this sport that has been able to put this man down. Other big men, other promotions tried, and basically they were put out to pasture. Other people have stepped up to him, and they just can't do it. They fail. What would it mean to you to kind of be the man to break the streak?
Not that much. If there's one thing I've learned, streaks don't matter. Look at the first singles match I lost. And it was against Persona.
Yep.
Persona is a great athlete, but he's a lot smaller than me. I'm a lot stronger. And I was crushed when that was my first loss. And I look back and I just don't see the relevance. No relevance in streaks.
Okay, fair point. I'll give you all that. And I want people, again, to make sure to follow Hybrid and join the conversation and follow him. And the Tribal Cheese would like to also say, I tell you one thing, though, and Hybrid will agree. It's not an undercard match. Main event only. Just like I said here, regardless
of what it is, yeah, I'll make you that deal, Cheese. Obviously, we can't book anything. We don't run the company. The only way I'll have Big Cheese in a match is in a main event, because that's where we should be.
And you know what? I want to go further because I was prepared for this. James Barris is coming on next Friday. I'm going to ask James Barris that. And you know what? If James Barris is having trouble, as somebody in myself who is a promoter, we got the money here. I'll put the money on the line. Listen, this is a match that we want to see on Sportswire Radio. This is a match that's worth this amount of pounds. Hundreds of pounds.
You listening, Barris?
This is a match. Forget about whatever else. Forget about anybody else in the CCW roster. This is the match that I think the people want to see. You want to continue the CCW sellout streak? You want to continue the social media engagements that continue to go up? You want more offshoots of CCW companies? This is actually the match that you need to book. So, James Barris, I know you're a smart man. I know you're a respected businessman. I know what you've done in this sport, but we're going to talk about this, I promise you, next Friday live in Hybrid's chair. And also, Mr. Cheese would like to say that's a good deal. We agree on things. Get that dollar out. Yeah, I will get that dollar out. And James Barris, you better make sure you get your pounds out. James Barris, you make that poster. You create that poster. All you need on that poster is Hybrid on one side, the tribal cheese on the other side. Get that smoke, get that fire, make them as tall, make them as larger than life that they are. Put that CCW logo there, put the address, put the location, put the cost of the event, and just put it there. That's all you need. Nothing else. Just do it. Make the match happen. Be the businessman that you are. And we're going to gladly talk about it here on Sportswire Radio. So I know we're coming up here to the end of our time, so I want to do a couple things here first. First, what is your final words for Walk of Wall Street before No Excuses next weekend?
Best of luck. Bring it. I hope you're 100%. Bring your A game. I know what you can do. I know how dangerous you are. The fact that we're going in there and I don't like you makes it worse for you.
All right. Well, that's certainly going to be interesting, short, sweet, simple, to the point. You know, I want to give you the opportunity also, if there's anything else that you want to address to the tribal cheese, because I would imagine, I know Mr. Barris is coming on next Friday, and you know there's going to be a big topic on the show next Friday, but I'm sure that Mr. Cheese will come back at some point if Mr. Barris is smart enough to make this match happen. I would like to have you on once again after your match with Walker Wall Street. But is there any final words or parting shots that you have toward the tribal cheese?
No shots. He knows how I feel about him. You know, I mean, I can't book anything, as I keep saying. I can't put emphasis on this is a job. If you're asking me what I want this match. And once you scrape yourself off the floor, Big Cheese, I'll happily sign a shirt for you or something.
Do you like grilled cheese?
Do I like what, sorry?
Do you like grilled cheese? Because you're going to scrape the cheese right off the floor. That's basically grilled cheese.
No, I don't. So mark that as a warning.
Okay, fair enough. And I will say this. I will say one more thing on this before we get to closing thoughts. If you think about, again, an attraction match, there are very few attractions left out there in this sport. And let's do this before the end of the year. To me, it would be the tribal cheese and hybrid. You look at the tribal cheeses following. You look at hybrids following. You look at what these two men have done, not even in this sport, but what they did as shoot fighters. You get what these two men have done to transform their lives. You look at everything that these guys bring to the table. This is the true fight that I think. It's not even a wrestling match. It's a fight. It's a brawl. This is what the people would want to see. This is going to continue CCW and blast us off into the next year and some. So I don't care what the stipulations might be, or if there's no stipulations, no disqualification, you just want to have a straight up brawl. These guys could even do a straight up UFC type fight. These guys can do it all. Let's make that match happen. I'll be talking with James Barris here, 8 o'clock British Standard Time next Friday about it, plus a whole lot in the world of CCW. I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot on your plate, so I want to give you the floor now. I want to give you some closing thoughts, champ. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say, the floor is yours. Fire away.
I don't need to, nor do I want to plug anything. I want everybody watching Mr. Barris, Taylor Truth, anyone like that, listen to what's being said. I'm a main eventer. I'm an attraction. I make your company better. I put butts in seats. Like I said, there's a reason that my name's mentioned so many times for dream matches, and that's because I'm so good. The fact of the matter is, if you wanted a big sellout event where you just need 2 people on a poster instead of middle-aged men painting the faces, me and Big Cheese can quickly make Colliery Championship Wrestling Combat Championship Wrestling, and that'll sell.
Whoa. I think I heard something there, ladies and gentlemen. Combat Championship Wrestling. I like it. I think as a businessman, that could maybe, just maybe, be the future of what we could see at another offshoot CCW show, group, whatever you want to call it. Combat Championship Wrestling, hybrid, and the tribal cheese. Just maybe the stars align. We see this match. As I said before, I think about attractions. I think about hybrid. I think about the tribal cheese, RPD in the past. I think about those larger than life characters that people pay their hard-earned money just to see them wrestle. I pay my money, my pounds, to see hybrid, to see the tribal cheese. That's the match that I want to see happen. I know a lot of people do. I have 2 more comments from the tribal cheese before we say sayonara for the evening. I do hope the match with Wall Street goes well. I shall be in Rome, Italy for a fortnight, so I unfortunately can't be there. So maybe the tribal cheese you just missed actually being an Equalizer 3, which you would have fitted in that movie. So would hybrid, because you guys would have been both in one of those roles for the Kimura. You obviously don't know. If you know this, not it was shot in Italy. So I think that we just missed out that. Yeah, it was a great movie. I saw it 5 times. Middle-aged, yeah. I love you guys do in the ring, and I think that you would have been great fits for that. Middle-aged men painting their faces. Ha ha ha. You melted the cheese with that one. Well, that is what some people think, but I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to certainly move on. I look forward to seeing what the future brings with you next weekend. I look forward to having you back on, hopefully, to talk about the match between you and the Tribal Cheese. And congratulations on all the success. I certainly see maybe this, as some may say, new persona, but it is the real hybrid. Seems to be working for you. So let's see if it works. And I hope to be able to promote more stuff with you. And thank you for the opportunity, and enjoy the rest of the evening. And can't wait to watch you in the ring next week and against Walker Wall Street at No Excuses.
Thanks for having us again. Cheers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Hybrid himself, the former CCW Underground Champion, here to talk about his match against Walker Wall Street. Also here to talk about his reign as Cutlery Championship Wrestling Underground Champion. He also talked about, which I think most people were interested in right in the last 20 minutes of the show, his hopeful dream match against the Tribal Cheese himself. Will be acknowledging Bree. Will be acknowledging Hybrid. We'll have to find out and more. You can follow CCW on all of their platforms. Also, they have a new show coming up in October as well called Cutlery of Souls 3. We'll talk about that with Mr. Barris and some. But my name is the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio, your voice of all wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryce, signing off here with Hybrid. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.